This tool shows the methodology and database for porosity and permeability. The crossplot shows all samples included in the CARP database. As of January 2022, there are more than 8,400 samples in the database. The database shows globally derived data which cover most geological time periods, different depositional settings, different diagenetic alterations, different geographic areas and different burial depths. We see that the data points are widely scattered and the coefficient of correlation R² is only 0.28. The data points along here are mostly derived from North Sea chalks, and if we exclude chalk from the dataset, R² is significantly less. Porosity permeability crossplots are used to predict permeability from porosity and to predict porosity cutoff for a critical permeability to flow. For accurate prediction, the predicted parameter should always be on the y-axis. The current plot has limited value in predictions due to the scatter in data points. It is therefore necessary to classify the input data according to sedimentological and diagenetic features. CARP uses a pore type classification system published by Lønø 2006 in APG in order to classify the samples. All samples in the CARP database are strongly dominated by only one pore type in order to find the end members of each pore type class. In real life, samples often have several common pore types. In CARP, we are able to handle up to 2 pore types within a sample, a dominant and a subordinate pore type. A subordinate pore type is only defined if it constitutes 25 to 50% of the pore volume. At lower content, it appears that its effect is insignificant on the predictions. The pore types, 21 in total, can be selected from the radio buttons to the left. We see that when porosity permeability crossplots are made for individual pore types, there is a significant improvement in correlation between porosity and permeability. The number of samples on each plot is given as n. An example thin section image of the pore types can be accessed by pressing the thin section image button. And a description of the pore types is available by pressing the pore type description button. Three sets of radio buttons are available to the right of the screen. Pore types have been defined from thin sections made from core plugs. The plugs applied in CARP are oriented horizontal to the core, and in most cases horizontal to bedding. Vertical plugs are not applied in CARP, primarily because such plugs often show variable properties related to bedding. Porosity permeability crossplots of vertical plugs have, however, been included in the data overview and can be selected from this radio button. Please remember that vertical plugs are not involved in the prediction tools. In order to predict a porosity cutoff from a critical permeability to flow, we need to have porosity along the y-axis. Shifting the axis can be carried out by pressing this radio button. To illustrate the importance of shifting the axis, we can take a look at pore type 111. If we assume that 1 millidarcy permeability is critical to flow, then if we have a permeability along the y-axis, like this, we see that the porosity cutoff is approximately 15%. However, if we have porosity along the y-axis, shifting the axis, and if we assume 1 millidarcy permeability critical to flow, then we see that the porosity cutoff is about 14%. Pore types have been grouped into pore type groups in order to facilitate prediction in pore quality datasets. The grouping is based on pore types with similar porosity-permeability relationships, and is shown by hovering the cursor over the pore groups button in top of the screen. We can switch to pore groups by selecting the pore group radio button. Comparison of user data with CARP's global database can be carried out from the yellow frame at the bottom of the page. The demo version has no functionality, but is available with a standard subscription. In the licensed full version, licensed companies have access to their own private tool. This preserves data security. The licensed version requires a premium subscription. Let's take a look at the licensed version. A valid licensed company name has to be entered into the text box. We then press the Go button. The Multi-Data tool opens in a new tab in your web browser. The first worksheet gives some introductory instructions. The tool follows in the next worksheet. Input data cells have a yellow background color, whereas the results are given in the plot. We enter or paste in data in columns A to C. We then select which pore type to compare and plot by entering a pore type into column E. User data for the selected pore type is plotted in red, whereas data from CARP's global database are plotted in blue. This is a simple way to see how well your user data agrees with the global database. Please note that the global data only involves samples that are strongly dominated by only one pore type, and plugs have no fractures or starlights that can affect permeability. If the user data involves subordinate pore types or have fractures or starlights, they are expected to plot more scattered than the global database.